dear people of Amazonia, my dear people of Southern Cameroons, my dear friends and lovers of freedom around the world and around Africa, you're welcome to the JMA Connection. Today is Saturday, and this day is the first day of the month of November, which is November 1, 2025. And I'm delighted to be here once more for us to have another very thought provoking uh, conversation around the situation in Cameroon, the situation in the southern Cameroons, and of course, we look once more at one of the reasons France of all, will never ever let Francophone African countries or their former colonial countries in Africa, the 14 countries, go scot free. At least this far, we have observed that there are three which have clearly kicked out France, or and this is Mali, this is Burkina Faso, and this is Niger. Sometimes people incidentally at Rwanda, but it is important to know that Rwanda was not really initially in the French column. It's true that they ended up having overbearing French influence, but Rwanda was more on the Belgian side. But of course, from the CFA franc, Rwanda had already cut off, and Rwanda has what is called the Rwandan franc. Although it is still called franc, but it is actually the Rwandan franc. Rwanda has its central bank and manages, that particular franc, although it is still called the franc. That's what confuses people sometimes to have that feeling that Rwanda is still using the CFA franc. And so, my dear people, I want to extend hearty salutes to all of you who have continued to send me very encouraging messages following one of my broadcasts that clearly established how the power sharing situation in La République du Cameroon is operating and the hidden hands of France. Today, we take this conversation a notch higher because right now, before everyone's eyes, La République du Cameroon is unraveling really fast at a speed no one expected. Before this time, a lot of men of God have said a lot of things about Cameroon. They said so much about Cameroon and the year 2025. Even young people who just became preachers, a few months back, had at least one or two things to say about Cameroon, its aging president, and an imminent, bloodbath in the country. But among all of this, I should call them prophecies or projections on Cameroon, there was a prophecy in 1975 that has stood the test of time. What made that a real prophecy is because when the late Archbishop Ndongmu made this prophecy, Paul Biya was not yet president of the Republic of Cameroon. In 1975, when Cameroon's first president, Amadou Ahidjo, was putting pressure and insisting on, either getting Ndongmu arrested, jailed for a long period of time, or even killed, and was facing opposition from the Vatican. And it got to the point when Ndongmu realized he necessarily had to go on exile. While at the airport, Archbishop Ndongmu made the following prophecy. Archbishop Ndongmu said, "Today I'm being forced to leave the land of my birth. I'm being forced to go to a foreign land with no idea when I'll ever come back to my country. But I want to say this, that this president," he was referring to Amadou Ahidjo in 1975, "who is very autocratic, who is very high-handed, who has demonstrated beyond reasonable doubt that he is an authoritarian, that this president, all the same, he's working hard, he's bringing development, and will even bring more development. But when this president steps down, the person that will take over from him, will reverse all the gains that this president is making, will reverse everything in every field. The country will get so backward and so terrible to the point that a transition between this second president and the third one is definitely going to be bloody." He said it is more likely to be bloody than smooth. And he said, and if care is not taken, the country could fly into pieces. But it will only be with a third president that Cameroon will find itself decidedly on the path of development and prosperity. In 1975, when Dongmu, the Archbishop Dongmu, made this prophecy, Paul Biya was prime minister, head of government. Amadou Ahidjo was president, and there was no indication that Amadou Ahidjo was about to give up power, because at that time we know a lot of the dictators who were presidents in Africa at the time, along with Amadou Ahidjo, never left power until the wave of democracy that blew across Africa came about in the early 90s. And so therefore it came to pass that in 1982, Ahidjo picked power and handed to Paul Biya on a platter of gold, and thus began a new series that no one until today can stand and say, no, Ndongo did not have a point. Because just take a quick look at what has happened with Cameroon. At the time Amadou Ahidjo left Cameroon, just look at the aviation sector. Khmer was about the jewel of Africa. Ahidjo had just come out of the Air Afrique arrangement because of the French influence and wanted to be more nationalistic and created Khmer. By the time he left, Khmer had about 14 aircrafts, some of them the best in the world. They had the Boeing 747, they had the Boeing 737, and they even had the Boeing 767. And at the presidency, Ahidjo left two aircrafts. You had the Pelican and the Sparrow, or what they call in French, the Hirondelle. And you looked across, there was public transportation. If you take your time to look at the whole thing today, Ahidjo at that time even had the luxury of offering aid to China. Yes, that was prior to 1982. And by the time Ahidjo left, Cameroon had very little in terms of foreign debt, even enjoyed budgetary surpluses. But today, the situation is completely different. And when you look at the situation on the ground right now, you have a picture that tells you very clearly that there is likely no way that Paul Biya will leave Cameroon the way he met it, as one country. So the fragmentation of Cameroon is approaching at a speed never before imagined. Right at this point that we are talking, the war, the genocidal war that Paul Biya has been waging in the southern Cameroons, it has been raging on for 9 years and counting, and there are no signs of abating. Some quarters even think that Paul Biya has become so comfortable with the war with his political allies who call themselves the elite from the regions, because that gives them the opportunity to constantly use their proxy armed groups to terrorize the opposition, and during every election cycle churn in magical results that favor them and favor their power ambitions. As you saw in the past, in the just recent elections, they were able to come up with the possibility that over 78% of the people of a region that is at war, that was not able to cough up 10% participation in 2018, that 78% of the population participated. This clearly is ultra-virus with what the situation on the ground is. We can see there is so much fire going on now. And this has even led to the death of a member of parliament of that CPDM party. Because when he was captured, they asked him to explain how a small locality like his constituency, Ako Misaje, was able to cover up 15,000 votes for candidate Paul Biya when the people were still under occupation by the Republic of Cameroon. These are many of those things that have cast a total pall on exactly how Cameroon emerges from the current electoral dispute. And so today, there is so much anxiety as the country is getting gradually paralyzed. Although, when you listen to government ministers in Yaoundé, you listen to government media outlets, you have the feeling that the situation is simmering. But on the ground, the story is different. You notice Douala, the economic capital, is totally paralyzed. No car has either entered or left Douala with passengers or with goods in the past 3 to 4 days today. And there is no indication exactly when things will change. In Yaoundé, the capital city, they're already beginning to feel a pinch of trucks and trains not coming down south from the northern regions. This situation is also affecting countries in the southern part of Cameroon where food supplies, things like bread and other pastry products, are unable to get to Bafoussam and then pass to places like Bamenda. So at this point that I'm talking, Cameroon is really not breathing, though they will give you the impression that it is. But now, what is even more worrisome is that opposition leader, former minister Issa Chiroma Bakari, reported 2 days ago that he was able to leave his residence in Garoua, where security forces are all over the place. You even have some posted on rooftops. Snipers on a neighbor's rooftop a few days ago opened fire on civilians, killing 3. And today, we are told that Issa Chiroma Bakari was able to leave that residence where you have about 4-5 layers of soldiers, police, gendarmes, waiting for the opportune moment to assault the residence and capture him. But on the contrary, he left. And when he left, he sent out this message. This message has sent shockwaves down the spines of everyone in the governing class in Cameroon. This same message has already sent shockwaves down the spines of leaders of neighboring countries in the Central African sub-region, because this is a clear indication that there is something bigger than perhaps people have been expecting in the offing. When Issa Chiroma says, Je remercie l'armée loyaliste qui a montré son patriotisme en me conduisant dans un lieu sûr et assure ma protection actuelle. Translated in English, he says, I am congratulating or showing gratitude to the patriotism of the loyalists arm of the Cameroon army, who have succeeded in taking me out of my residence, extracting me from my residence, and taking me to a safer location where they are assuring my protection. This sends a clear message. One, that the army of Cameroon, on which Paul Biya has relied all these years to force his will on the people, is divided. This shows that there are loyalties already that they don't know. You know, in the wake of the announcement of the result of this election, there are some soldiers who have already been captured and detained simply because they expressed joy that Issa Chiroma Bakari had, scored so well in the election and was probably on course to becoming the 3rd president of Cameroon. You also go by the exit polls, you notice that even at the military headquarters in Yaoundé, Issa Chiroma Bakari won largely. You hear in several towns and cities, they say where there were majority military barracks, Issa Chiroma Bakari won the vote. In some precincts, military people could be seen actually expressing excitement and joy when the tallies were being made, indicating that Issa Chiroma Bakari had won. And Issa Chiroma Bakari has not been economical with his words, pointing out very clearly that even within the government, within the current government, appointed by Mr. Paul Biya, there are a huge number of officials who are backing him, a huge number of officials who are urging him on, a huge number of officials who are asking him not to give up. And the reason is simple. They see in what is happening not the re-election of Paul Biya, the nonagenarian 93-year-old diaper-wearing politician who sometimes doesn't even know where he is about 3/4 of the time during the day. The display that Mr. Paul Biya put up in Washington, D.C., the United States of America, just a few years back, informed everyone that Paul Biya, to the best of everyone's knowledge, will not even know where he is sometimes during the day. And to say the next 7 years will be run by Paul Biya, it's a scam. And so a lot of the members of the current government are aware of this reality, and they know that right now the mandate holder is not Paul Biya, is rather the Secretary General at the presidency, along with the First Lady Shankar Biya, who appears to have tasted power and is not ready, not anytime soon, to relinquish the grip that they have on power. And so consequently, Issa Chiruma Bakari's indication that he enjoys sound support within the current government, enjoys good support within the armed forces of Cameroon. It's something that should indicate, something that should speak fear into the minds of everyone, because it tells of a clearly uncertain future. Because how would you explain this? That the central government in Yaoundé has been developing strategies day and night on how to arrest and hold Issa Chiruma Bakari in detention. So they are certain where he is, they can see him, and they know that they have him under their control to ensure that he will not be available to give out instructions, he will not be available to direct or unleash a kind of resistance to Yaoundé. But now that he was able to be taken out amid tight security is an indication that the infiltration is not only minimal, that the infiltration is severe. This will not be the first time that Issa Chiruma Bakari left his residence, even when all the layers of Cameroon's secret service, as well as police force, gendarmerie force, and even the rapid intervention battalion were on his heels. On election day, on the 12th of October 2025, there was a plan to capture Issa Chiruma Bakari as soon as he cast his vote and returned to his house. That did not work, because as soon as Issa Chiruma Bakari got back home, it only took a few minutes for him to get back out and disappear from the radar of the same security forces that had created serious belts around him. So this porosity is a clear indication of high-level collaboration. He gets information sometimes even faster than those who are supposed to get it and execute against him. And so therefore, when CRTV, the state-run media, sends out a message like this one, Cameroonians of all walks of life are on to their duty, or are on to their daily routines after the proclamation of the 2025 presidential election. Businesses are unperturbed, while learners are back to classrooms for studies. In the city of Yaoundé, everyone is going about his or her own business as the town breathes life this Tuesday, October 28, 2025. But of course, this is a surreal message. This message was rather received by the people as a kind of provocation. Provocation because the people imagine that while they're paining, while they're expecting frustration, while they're expecting exasperation, and while they're really out there on the streets in the various towns and cities of the country demonstrating their outrage, the state-run media that is sponsored by the taxpayers' money comes out to give a totally different impression. One thing to note was that on Monday, the 27th of October, while all the streets of the country, including in Yaoundé, were witnessing running battles here and there, the Cameroon Radio Television was presenting shows on how to cook local meals. And this was interpreted by the people as that clear nonchalance, as a demonstration of that fact that their woes really do not matter to the powers that be. And it is that kind of situation that has thrown more fuel into the fire that is already consuming the country. We have seen destructions happen in Douala, in Bafoussam, in Bertoua, in Garoua, in Marwa, in Gaoundéré, in Sancho, In fact, in several cities. What is even amazing is that Betwa, in the East region, a region that has generally been considered as one of those loyal to Mr. Paul Biya, has been really on fire and very much in the news. It is there even that you have recorded about the most deaths with the demonstrations that are ongoing right now. But while all this is going on, Chantal Biya, the First Lady of Cameroon, has joined the CPDM elite made of many of ministers, of directors general, of directors, of secretaries general, to have fun, to celebrate while the country mourns, to celebrate while people are weeping, to celebrate while people are seeing their future totally disappear before them. Take a watch. That is Chantal Biya, right in the middle there. She organized a white party to celebrate what she calls a victory. And this, in the eyes of many, is considered provocation, because they believe that Chantal is well aware that this victory is not deserved, because if it were, you will not have a lot of people, you will not have myriad people spoiling for general fighting in the streets of the country. At the same time, you still have also scenes like this ones, where you find people who are generally hungry called upon to come sit in places to collect bags of rice, to collect cooking oil, to collect meat in celebration. But when they get there, you see what happens. Because they are all aware of the atmosphere out there, because they are all aware that just having their faces displayed out there could spell doom. That is why, hypocritically, they have to cover their faces. Because what has brought them here is not celebration. What has brought them here is hunger. What has brought them here is misery. What has brought them here is suffering. The same suffering that has reduced these people to the point where all the CPDM elite need to do is dangle a 2,000 francs note, a 5,000 francs note, a box of sardine, a loaf of bread, and sometimes a bottle of Fanta to cause them to mortgage their future. So, where we are today, we are exactly at that place where the country is likely going to burn, and burn for a very long period of time. But if it could only end at burning, no one perhaps will be too worried, because at the end of the day, you see there could be peace and reconciliation, that there could be reconciliation through some kind of show of justice, and then people could rebuild. But that doesn't seem to be the situation with the Cameroons. Because right now, as I said in one of my broadcasts, the situation has got so bad that Issa Chiroma Bakari says he is not yielding, and he responded to what he calls a provocation. This shows that on a daily basis there is an escalation. On a daily basis the situation is escalating. As he says in this message, écoutez-moi bien, meaning listen to me and listen well. Seule votre détermination les fera partir. La peur ne nous arrêtera pas. Your determination, and your determination alone, is what will cause this regime to disappear. Fear will not stop us, he says. He says, cette année, this year, nous avons une opportunité unique de dire trop c'est trop. This year, we have a unique opportunity to say enough is enough. C'est pendant que nous pleurons nos morts, ils se réjouissent et se moquent. While we are mourning our deaths, while we are mourning those that they have killed during these demonstrations, they are celebrating. And they are not only celebrating, they are celebrating and they are mocking at us. So he said, and they are mocking at us openly, because ils se moquent ouvertement d'avoir utilisé leur position pour faire élire frauduleusement leur candidat, ce qui leur permettra de rester en poste et de nous maintenir dans la misère. Demain marquera une nouvelle étape de notre combat. So he says, while we are mourning our death, while we are mourning those that they have killed because they are demonstrating and seeking justice, they are celebrating and mocking at us because they have used their positions to cause their candidate to be elected fraudulently, so that will enable them to maintain us in suffering and misery. And he said, beginning tomorrow, we will enter the third phase of our fight. Now, this fight is a fight bigger than just ensuring that Paul Biya leaves power. This fight is even the more important because there is so much more in the offing than people know. There is so much more that meets the eye than people are aware. In one of my broadcasts in recent days, I pointed out that the government of President Paul Biya in 2024 signed a secret pact with Paris, with the French government, to ensure that Cameroon will remain in the CFA franc zone for at least 30 more years. I hope you hear what I say. That Cameroon will not make any moves to have its own currency, to assert economic independence for at least 30 more years. They must remain within the franc zone. And that Cameroon will not only ensure that they remain within the franc zone, the CFA franc zone, they will also use their position to obstruct any attempts by other countries to come up with a single currency for West Africa. This is that part. And in return, France will close its eyes on whatever the government of Cameroon does to maintain itself in power. The government of Paul Biya does to maintain itself in power. And whatever moves they take to ensure a transition from either Biya to his son or from Biya to any of his other loyalists. And so therefore, with this pact in hand, France would definitely come to the rescue of La République du Cameroon, even with military force, if need be. Wonder why this far? France has neither denounced the masquerade of an election nor openly congratulated Paul Biya, because they are still concerned about their interests. In a broadcast I made 4 days ago, I said plainly, that was on Monday the 27th, when the results were proclaimed, I said plainly that France was not going to be in a haste to send a letter of congratulation. France was going to take its time, get its satellite powers to go ahead and extend the letters of congratulation, so that at the end of the day, France will come as if they came reluctantly, as if they were just concerned, as if they had just seen that the people had accepted their fate and they could not replace the people of Cameroon to fight for justice in their place. And so France will simply come very belatedly, 2-3 weeks after, to recognize the government or to recognize Mr. Paul Biya as president once more. And so this is what has been going on. But with this commentary that I'm about to play out now, the situation is likely to become even dicier. Just listen.
Documents ultra confidentiels. Des documents qui prouvent l'existence d'un pacte secret signé entre le gouvernement camerounais et les autorités monétaires françaises. Ce pacte, baptisé Protocole des Yaoundé 2024, stipule que le Cameroun s'engage à maintenir le franc CFA pour au moins 30 ans supplémentaires, bloquer toute tentative de création d'une monnaie commune ouest-africaine, garantir l'accès privilégié aux ressources naturelles pour les entreprises françaises. Mais ce n'est pas tout. En échange, la France s'engage à soutenir politiquement le successeur désigné de Biya, fournir une assistance militaire en cas de trouble, garantir des prêts à des taux préférentiels pour maintenir l'illusion de stabilité. Vous réalisez ce que cela signifie? Le Cameroun est en train d'hypothéquer son avenir économique pour les 3 prochaines décennies. Analysons ensemble les conséquences catastrophiques de cette trahison. Premièrement, le maintien forcé du franc CFA signifie que le Cameroun continuera à avoir ses réserves de change stockées en France. Chaque année, c'est l'équivalent de 50% des réserves nationales qui dorment dans les coffres du Trésor français. Faisons le calcul. Sur 30 ans, cela représente environ 150 milliards de francs CFA qui ne seront pas investis dans l'économie camerounaise. De l'argent qui aurait pu construire des hôpitaux, des écoles, des routes. Des économistes indépendants que nous avons contactés confirment que cette décision condamne le Cameroun à rester un exportateur de matières premières, incapable de développer des documents ultra confidentiels. Des documents qui prouvent...
So, a quick summary of what was said there in French. In this commentary by a French news outlet, they established clearly what I just pointed out, that a secret pact known as the Yaoundé Protocol 2024, signed between Paris and Yaoundé, indicates that, number one, for 30 more years, at least 3 more decades, Cameroon must stay within the CFA France zone. Number two, Cameroon will do everything to obstruct the putting in place of a common West African currency to replace the CFA francs. Number three, Cameroon will guarantee access to French companies to natural resources in Cameroon. I mean, in terms of preference, they will have obviously what is called the right of first. And then that will not be all. In return, Cameroon or the government of Paul Biya could count on the support of Paris to stay in power for as long as they want and carry out the kind of transition they want, either from Biya to his son or from Biya to any of Biya's loyalists. And the consequences of this are grave because, as they say, as you hear in this report very clearly, this means, number one, for at least 30 more years, Cameroon will remain a country exporting only primary products. Cameroon will not be able, the economy of Cameroon will not be able to take off. Number two, at least Cameroon's foreign reserves will continue to stay in the French treasury. France will continue to manage Cameroon's foreign currency reserves. The other thing that is very clear here is that Cameroon will continue to operate like a province of France during this entire period. And another thing that you should be able to get from this is a clear indication that the development of Cameroon will be very complicated. And for the Cameroon government to show some fake kind of sense of economic stability, France or Paris guarantees that they are going to give Cameroon loans at very preferential rates. These loans at preferential rates will mean that the interest rates will be low and allow the Cameroon government to basically operate on loans and give the impression of some stabilization. I know for the Cameroon government, the objective has generally been to pay the military, both gendarme, police, the B, and all of them, higher than all other public servants, to make sure they're always able to pay the meager salaries that they pay to the public service. And then three, make sure that they're always able to meet up with some other financial obligations that give the impression that the economy is stabilized. Whereas at the base, nothing is moving. The level of poverty will continue to grow. Misery will continue to spread. And the people will continue to not have the basic amenities that are required to make life acceptable, such as access to potable water, access to good medical facilities, access to quality education, access to even just having electricity. My dear people, this is more than betrayal. And that's even exactly what is said in this report. And so therefore, with this knowledge, you know, the people of the Southern Cameroons for the past 9 years have been resolute. We were not part of this arrangement before. We were not part of France. We don't even have, we didn't have anything at all to do with France, and we don't have any reason to suddenly find ourselves submitting to the dictates of France. And so that war is raging on. And from all indications, the war is only going to gain in intensity, perhaps until the Southern Cameroons completely cut off from La République du Cameroun. And for France, that is something they can tolerate. That's something they can tolerate. But then, the bad news right now is that with what is going on concerning Issa Chiroma Bakari and the attempts of Yaoundé to make this an ethnic encounter, to tribalize the whole situation. We have seen now in the major cities, in Douala, for example, a video has emerged of the businesses of indigents from the three northern regions of Cameroon being viciously attacked. We have also seen videos emerged of rampant arrests and detentions of indigents from the three northern regions in Yaoundé. This is a clear indication that Yaoundé intends to tribalize this. And in response, the indigents from the north say this, that they are more than ready to get to that place where they now are going to cut off and create their own country made up of the three northern regions. A country they say they are likely to name the Republic of Logon. And they already have come up. This may seem laughable. This may look like a joke, but this is how it always begins. And when it begins this way, too many people know how it ends. That's why I talked about the Balkanization of Cameroon gaining steam. So you see, they say here the motto, unity, faith, resilience. Capital city, Garoua. That's the political capital, and economic capital, Maroua. Official language, Fulfulde, French and English. Currency, of course, they are thinking about the creation of their own currency because the sentiment across Gen Z, all over Francophone Africa, is that the CFA franc must be killed. But France is not ready to hear that with one ear, because if that happens, that will mean a total collapse of the French economy, which is dependent on resources taken from their African colonies. And so therefore, you find that with this coming up, it's something that should send shockwaves through some people's spines. Because do not forget, he may be in jail right now, but what he talked about is not something that needs to be pushed away with the wave of the hand. Abubakar Usman May had made clear that Paul Biya will either go on retirement peacefully in 2025 or be forced to do so. And he said the northern regions will be ready to play the lead role in making sure Paul Biya is given marching orders, even if it's not going to be by electoral means. Hear him.
Mais si les gars résistent, on va aller jusqu'au bout. On va aller jusqu'au bout. On va effectivement armer les réacteurs. Ça va être tiré. Puisqu'on a déjà les codes.
Are you announcing possibility of chaos should the current regime is maintained in power?
Tout est sur la table. Les billets doivent partir.
Should we not be talking about a peaceful transition?
Je n'ai rien à ajouter. Tout est sur la table.
Et là, nous sommes à 4 mois.
So you hear him very well. For those who do not understand French, this is what he said. He said in 2025, if Paul Biya refuses to take a well-deserved retirement in dignity, he will be forced to do so. And he says that when 2005 will knock at the doors, the northern regions will be ready. And when you heard the journalist ask him, are you talking about possibility of chaos? His response is clear. All options are on the table, and the north is ready. All they will need to do is activate the nuclear reactors. What he say, activate the nuclear. Of course, I understand here, it doesn't mean that they have nuclear weapons. It simply means that they are ready, that they stand ready to fight, because they definitely had already been aware that Paul Biya can never be removed from power through the ballot box, and that perhaps only the ballot box could be the answer to this very difficult equation that no one has been able to solve since 1992. And when asked whether he thought that the northern regions have what it takes, Abubakar Usman May said they are ready. But Abubakar Usman May had been captured prior to the elections and is in jail. But his being in jail does not indicate that whatever he was talking about or counting on is also in jail. The actions and the tempo of Issa Tiruma Bakari indicates that there could be something much greater than meets the eyes, because he doesn't seem worried. He hasn't indicated any panic at any time. He has not noted at some point that he could back down. A statement like this one from Bakari, where he says, tuez-moi si vous voulez, mais je libérerai ce pays par tous les moyens. Kill me if you care, but I'm going to free this country by all means. This is an indication that Issa Chiruma Bakare is not hoping that it's only going to be through the ghost towns that he has called to run from Monday the 3rd of November all the way to Wednesday the 6th. No, it's a clear indication that Issa Chiruma Bakari understands what is said in diplomatic circles, that war is a continuation. It's Otto von Clausewitz that says this, that war is a continuation of politics by other means, which is an indication that Issa Chiruma Bakari is likely to take the politics of the October 12th presidential elections, which have been stolen by other means. And so when you look at these maps flying all over the place, you may think it's a joke, but people are already thinking what will come out of this triangle. When you look at this map, this is obviously from the Amazonian circles, of course, to which I belong. When you look at this map indicates to you that the Southern Cameroons is already out of the game. Of course, this is clear. Anyone with a clear head will understand that it's just a matter of time before the Southern Cameroons is totally and absolutely independent. But now for the rest of the triangle, you look at the carving. The carving here indicates what you see in red, where they say Fangbeti. Fangbeti here is the center and the south region. The center region and the south region, these are ethnic groups that have a lot in common. They speak literally the same language and understand themselves very well. Although there are people from other groups in these regions who are likely not ready to identify as Beti, but they are carved within this confines. And if you go by this map, it tells you that the rest of the country is pro-Issa Chiruma Bakari. That means the three northern regions, the east region. Of course, the east region is connected to the Adamawa region. And then you now have the west and the littoral regions that are added to this, making a total here of 6 regions. A total of 6 regions that are credited in this particular map under Issa Chiruma Bakari. But yet there are those who still believe very strongly that if Paul Biya and his Ekam, Beti people are kicked out, there is the possibility that they can have the Southern Cameroons to stay within the columns of a certain Republic of Cameroon run in a loose kind of federation by Issa Chiruma Bakari. Of course, what I can outrightly reject right here, because that possibility is unlikely to exist. That is why you see from this map, they trace to you that all what you see in green is the country that right now actually sings or responds to the tune of Issa Chiruma Bakari. And the one you see, in some kind of purple, is where Paul Biya's stronghold is. And they name it RDPC CPDM, and they say this is the kingdom of Mr. Paul Biya and his CPDM elite. What you see at this point, where my cursor is showing, is actually the territory of the Southern Cameroons that those who should be federalists right here are thinking could stay within that column. But again, this other map tells a different story. Of course, this story could be similar to the other one, but it shows again that there could be some fragmentation that is deeper than what you see. And this fragmentation is going to lead to dilemmas. Dilemmas because the peoples of some of the regions appear not to have any kind of cultural connections together. Much as the 3 northern regions, the Adamawa, the north, and the far north, brings together people who literally, who are majority Muslims, who speak a lot of the time the same language and understand each other, and could pull together very easily in that new country that they want to call the Republic of Logon, that the people of the Southern Cameroons, who are part of what they call today the Northwest and Southwest region, of course this was even already a country because this is an entity, These are a people recognized as such under international law because the Southern Cameroon has internationally recognized boundaries. And if you are following me from outside Cameroon, if you are following me on the African continent, I'd like you perhaps to take a look at this picture, because this picture will make it easy for anyone outside Cameroon to understand what this is all about. This picture, in this picture, you see these are representatives of the United Nations who came in from New York in 2010 when the Republic of Cameroon that acquired independence or that achieved independence on the 1st of January 1960 without the territory of the Southern Cameroons was celebrating 50 years of its independence. And so as a present, the Secretary General of the United Nations dispatched a delegation to offer to Mr. Paul Biya two maps. The two maps that you see right there, the smaller map that is carried in the hands, that is the map of the Southern Cameroons with its international boundaries. This map is delivered here to the President of Cameroon by the special envoys of the United Nations that you see standing there by Mr. Paul Biya. And the bigger map standing down there is the map of the Republic of Cameroon with its international boundaries recognized on the 1st of January 1960 when that country achieved independence. So the presence of these maps at the United Nations should indicate to you that even right at the United Nations, they know the international boundaries. Yes, clearly delimited of the Southern Cameroons. This is for those who are talking about Southern Cameroons as a secessionist movement. No, it is not. It has never been. And so therefore, when you have the Southern Cameroon stepping aside, and now you have the three northern regions stepping aside, and then you have the center and the south becoming a country. But take note, for the Biya system, they believe that their Beti tribe or their Beti state will involve the East. It is true that we see a lot of protests erupting all over the East, with the East trying to dissociate itself from what is called the Bulu Ekang-Beti clan. We have seen activists from the East come out clearly to indicate they are neither Beti nor are they Bulu. They are not a Wondo. They are not Bulu. They are not Mangisa. They are not Ngumba. That they have no relationship with them ethnically. But in the psychic of the Yaoundé system, they believe that if they are breaking up the center, south, and the east. And so if that happens, give to Biya the center, south, and the east. You will now have the west region and the littoral region left on their own. The peoples of these two regions really, culturally, have very little in common. So this is an indication that Cameroon today can very rightly be described as the sick man of Africa. That Cameroon today can rightly be described as the sick man of Africa, just like was the Ottoman Empire or Turkey, as you can call it, in Europe at the time. So, with what is going on now, France and La République du Cameroun are playing with fire. And from all indications, because the Yaoundé system is bent on hanging on to power, and Issa Tiruma Bakari, by day and by night, continues to up the ante, it should be clear, therefore, that the fragmentation or the Balkanization of Cameroon is going to gain excessive speed in the days or in the weeks right ahead. And so, on this platform, I'll continue to monitor the situation, and I'll continue to bring more information on this platform, and I will continue to call on the friends of the Southern Cameroons across the continent, those who love freedom, to continue to show us the support that they have shown this far as we struggle to assert our identity. So I want to thank all of you who found time to be part of this broadcast. I will be really delighted if you go ahead to share the link and share as much as possible. That will get a lot more people edified with exactly what is going on in La République du Cameroon and the situation, the ongoing genocidal war being sponsored by France through the Biya government in the southern Cameroons, and of course, what is going on in the Central African sub-region, and the next move that France is continuing to take to maintain its grip on Francophone Africa. So do not only share, also find time to subscribe so that you will always get an alert each time there is something new coming on this platform. Until we meet again right on this platform, it's ciao. Thank you so much for your kind attention.